Hello, James here. I'm gonna. This is centered around what's the latest with this Straightway, but basically, I'm gonna give you an introduction of videos that tell you the persona of a cult leader, and this lady explains it pretty well. How these people keep popping up on the internet, and how they get people. But here's the introduction into her video.
What do Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., and Hitler have in common? They were all obsessively studied by Jim Jones, the cult leader who convinced and coerced some 900 members of his People's Temple to drink poison Flavor-Aid in 1978, in what came to be called the Jonestown Massacre. All these figures are known as charismatic leaders, people who inspire intense devotion or emotional attachment in their followers through their communication skills. While Jones had little in common with these men spiritually or philosophically, he was fascinated with their ability to sway people. Even from a young age, he exhibited a desire to control, and he knew that the best tool for the job was language. I'm Dr. Erica Brzozowski, and this is Otherwords.
Men have so dastardly distorted what my spirit is.
You can't go against that culture because going against that culture.
My father gave me long before this
If there's one thing that cult leaders do, it's talk. A lot. Like Jim Jones, Heaven's Gate's Marshall Applewhite, or NXIVM's Keith Raniere, the traditional image of a cult leader is a person, usually but not always male, orating for hours on end while a congregation hangs on his every word. While there are common linguistic features of cult leaders' speech, which we'll get to in a bit, the quantity of words seems to matter as well. For decades, researchers have been testing the Babel hypothesis, which proposes that leaders are chosen for how much they speak rather than the quality of their ideas. Since the 1950s, scientists and psychologists have been questioning the theory's credibility, but in 2020, the most thorough test ever conducted had surprising results. Diverse groups of people with varying personalities and skill sets were tasked to solve challenging strategy games as a team. Each member's total speaking time was carefully measured, as well as the substance of their utterances. Afterwards, the subjects were all asked to nominate other group members for leadership positions. The results weren't even close. Speaking time had by far the highest correlation with leadership emergence, beating out intelligence, agreeableness, game proficiency, and even extroversion. The only other factor that came close was gender. While the study doesn't purport to explain the psychological factors behind it, it seems likely that humans use quantity of speech as a mental shortcut to determine who would make a good leader. If everyone else is listening to this guy, maybe I should too. But not all leaders are cult leaders. In her book Cultish, linguist Amanda Montell seeks to tease out some common linguistic features of the men and women who run so-called destructive cults, authoritarian groups that exploit or otherwise cause harm to their members. And one of the most common is loaded language. Loaded language is a general term for words or phrases that have deep emotional associations for the listener, like genocide, patriot, toxic, or vermin. Cult leaders will craft their loaded language to have specific connotations. David Koresh used the phrase new light to cast his teachings as divine inspiration. Charles Manson repurposed the Beatles song lyric Helter Skelter to refer to an imminent race war. And Jim Jones borrowed the term revolutionary suicide from Black Panther activists to equate his plan for mass suicide with resistance to authoritarian state power. Through repetition, these leaders ingrain an intense emotional association in their followers' psyche, so that eventually, just invoking a short phrase can instantly summon powerful feelings of beauty, love, fear, or hatred. It's like creating linguistic buttons that can be pushed to generate an immediate response. Another trick in the cult leader's language toolkit is the thought-terminating cliché. These are sayings that end uncomfortable conversations or trains of thoughts. It is what it is. Everything happens for a reason. Let's agree to disagree. They shut down argument and critical thinking, which is why they're so handy to authoritarians who don't like to be questioned. Charles Manson countered any rational objections to his ravings by saying, "No sense makes sense." Try arguing with that. T and Do, the leaders of the Heaven's Gate cult, would tell skeptical listeners that they didn't have the gift of recognition. And Warren Jeffs, leader of the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, admonished dissatisfied female congregants to keep sweet. Thought-terminating cliches are a two-way street. They allow the leader to avoid threatening questions while giving followers permission to ignore their cognitive dissonance. Not sure whether you're doing the right thing? Well, it's out of our hands, as Jim Jones would say. You might be thinking that these traits aren't exclusive to cults. After all, mainstream religions are full of loaded language like heaven and hell and thought-terminating cliches like God works in mysterious ways. A linguistic study from 2021 analyzed the speeches of destructive cult leaders like Jim Jones and Marshall Applewhite and compared them to those of mainstream religious leaders like Billy Graham and Rick Warren. And while there were some similarities, there were also some stark differences. For one, cult leaders' speech tends to be highly elaborative, using words like that, which, would, and because to create novel worlds full of complex rules and causalities. Mainstream preachers, by contrast, don't have to explain new systems of morality and spiritualism, but instead work from those their audiences are already familiar with. They also found that cult leaders favored the pronouns us and them, while mainstream religious leaders preferred you. This is consistent with cults' tendency to reinforce in-group, out-group dynamics through language. Members of Heaven's Gate believed themselves to be evolved and next level, while outsiders were stuck on the human level. NXIVM labeled unbelievers suppressives, and Scientology uses the derogatory wogs to refer to non-Scientologists. Perhaps the most efficient linguistic tactic for reinforcing an us versus them mentality is the use of jargon. While specialized vocabularies are necessary in many professions, cults use them for a secondary social purpose, to determine who is a trusted part of the family and who is an outsider to be avoided. Members of Heaven's Gate called their bodies vehicles and their group the classroom. They didn't say kitchen or laundry room, but Nutrilab and Fiber Lab. NXIVM, the multi-level marketing company turned sex trafficking cult, performed integrations to rid members of their mental dysfunctions, known as disintegrations. And the jargon of Scientology can quite literally fill a 300-page dictionary, which members were forced to study for hours on end. A 2020 study by researchers from Columbia University and USC examined the relationship between jargon and self-perception. They analyzed the writings of a broad spectrum of graduate students and found that the lower the ranking of the university the student attended, the higher the frequency of unnecessary jargon. Students from high-status schools tended to communicate more simply and clearly. They also invited business school students to pitch ideas to a panel of experts, Shark Tank style, but manipulated their feelings of status beforehand. Some were told that their competitors were successful entrepreneurs, while others were told they were competing against high school kids. Those that had been made to feel inferior were more likely to use jargon in their pitches. The researchers concluded that jargon can function as a kind of linguistic conspicuous consumption, advertising a higher status using words. Many ex-members of cults support this hypothesis, recollecting the early thrill of learning a mysterious terminology. Like kids sharing a secret code in a clubhouse, it made them feel part of an exclusive group which gave them a sense of superiority. In her book, Montel offers evidence that these linguistic tactics have seeped out from cults and into wider society. Propelled by capitalist demands and the reach of social media, the language of cults, she says, is now everywhere. If you question the business model of a multi-level marketing scheme, well, that's just stinking thinking, a thought-terminating cliche popular with MLMs like Amway. Similarly, when the predictions of QAnon and other conspiracy theorists don't come to pass, followers on social media are told to trust the plan. Corporations employ mantras full of loaded language to enforce obedience, like Jeff Bezos' leadership principles, which include think big and dive deep. Politics is rife with us versus them terminology, so that everyone is either a patriot or a traitor. And fitness centers like SoulCycle or CrossFit use jargon like box, squad, tapbacks, or DOMs to make membership feel exclusive. Montel argues that as traditional institutions like churches, clubs, and unions have declined in popularity, people are desperate for new ways to feel a sense of belonging, and the majority turn to social media. Online wellness gurus like Teal Swan and Bentino Massaro have been accused of cult-like behavior, though they deny it. Technology has vastly lowered the bar, allowing them to influence an infinite number of followers from the comfort of their own homes. Say what you want about Jim Jones, the guy could talk for hours IRL without editing. Meanwhile, TikTokers are competing to coin the next trendy phrase like polywork, micro-cheating, or 75 cozy. This online jargon has little functional purpose other than to create a sense of community amongst the people who know it and confer status in the form of viral views to the ones who can successfully get others to adopt it. In a widely read essay in The Cut, financial columnist Charlotte Cowles explained in detail how she was talked into handing a box of $50,000 in cash to a stranger. The linguistic tactics the scammers used were compared to how police may coerce a false confession from a suspect, but could just as well apply to cult indoctrination. They do it incrementally, in a series of small steps that take you farther and farther from what you know to be true. It's not about breaking the will, they were altering the sense of reality. Montel cites the French philosopher Maurice Merleau-Ponty, who stated that language was our element as water is the element of fish. Your perception of reality depends less on the physical things you see than the words you hear. Language empowers cult leaders to create a mini-universe, as Montel puts it, around their followers. The defense of that is not to block out language, but to hear more of it from as many sources as possible. That way, no one person has the power to shape your reality. Nixium, the multi-level marketing company turned sex trafficking cult, performed integrations to rid members of their mental dysfunction.
It's a shame. There's a bunch of kids making thousands of dollars a day passively trading options. And
in this special video, I will show you 8 types of people we should not help. You will be surprised by the last one. But before we start, I want you to pay close attention to this story, as it will be very important for you to understand the great lesson of this video. Once upon a time, there was a farmer named Joe who lived in a small village. Joe was known for his kindness and was always willing to help others. One day he found a snake trapped in a snare in his field. Although it was dangerous, Pedro felt compassion for the snake and decided to set it free. Joe took care of the snake, feeding it and giving it a safe place to recover. However, as soon as the snake felt better, it bit Joe and slithered away. Joe, hurt and surprised, realized that the snake's nature was to bite, no matter how much help it received. This story teaches us that some people, like the snake, do not change their nature. Sometimes, in our desire to help, we can ignore the signs and end up getting hurt. It is crucial to know who we help and understand that not everyone will value or appreciate our efforts. Imagine your energy is like a battery. Some people recharge it, while others drain it faster than a phone with 100 apps open. Sound familiar? Well, let's explore these energy vampires and why it is crucial to recognize them. Before diving into the first type of person, if you find value in these videos, please subscribe and click the bell to stay updated. Let's begin. Number 1. The Ingrates. Have you ever met someone who seems to have a black hole instead of a heart? Those people who, no matter how much you give them, always want more and are never satisfied. Imagine you are at a restaurant enjoying a delicious dinner with friends. Suddenly, you hear someone loudly complaining about the food, the service, even the color of the napkins. Yes, you've guessed it. It's the professional ingrate in action. But why do some people seem perpetually dissatisfied? Psychology has some interesting answers. According to a study by the University of California, people with low self-esteem tend to be less grateful. It's like they have a filter that only lets the negative pass through, blocking all the good that life offers them. Now, we're not saying you should cut ties with everyone who forgets to say thank you, but it's important to recognize when someone is constantly abusing your kindness. As the famous businessman Richard Branson once said, treat your employees as you want them to treat your best customers. We could extend this advice to all our relationships. Think of gratitude as a plant. It needs to be watered and cared for to grow. If you are constantly giving water, your time, energy, resources to a plant that never blooms, perhaps it's time to ask yourself if you're cultivating in the wrong garden. But be careful not to confuse ingratitude with constructive honesty. Your friend who tells you that you have spinach in your teeth before an important date isn't an ingrate. They're a hero without a cape. The difference lies in the intention and the pattern of behavior. A fascinating study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology revealed that people are not only happier, but also have stronger and more enduring relationships. It's as if gratitude is the invisible glue that holds our social connections together. Now then, what do we do with these people? The answer is not simple, but we can take some lessons from positive psychology. Martin Seligman, considered the father of this branch of psychology, suggests that cultivating gratitude benefits not only the receiver, but also the giver. So instead of getting frustrated with ingrates, we might see them as an opportunity to strengthen our own ability to appreciate the good in life. It's like going to the gym, but for our gratitude muscle. However, let's not confuse being grateful with being a bottomless pit. Setting healthy boundaries is as important as being generous. As the writer Brené Brown once said, generosity is not infinite, and it isn't true generosity if it comes from resentment. Remember, their lack of gratitude says more about them than it does about you. As the psychologist Carl Rogers once said, the curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. So the next time you encounter an ingrate, take a deep breath, remember your own worth, and ask yourself, does this person deserve my energy? If the answer is no, it's okay to take a step back. You're not being selfish, you're practicing self-care. And if you decide to continue helping, do it because you genuinely want to, not because you expect recognition. As the philosopher Immanuel Kant said, act in such a way that you use humanity, both in your person and in the person of any other, always at the same time as an end, never merely as a means. Now let's move on to the second type of person we should not help.
Breaking news. Friday, 19th of April 2024. A secret banking loophole, known only to a handful of Americans, is set to explode in returns by Q3 and Q4 of 2024. It's an emerging technology that's allowing retail investors to sidestep government
Now let's move on to the second type of person we should not help. Number 2. The lazy. Have you ever met someone who seems to have an allergy to effort? Those people who always have an excuse for not doing anything, as if the couch were their natural habitat and the remote control an extension of their hand. Welcome to the fascinating world of the lazy, those masters of the art of doing nothing, who teach us valuable lessons about productivity or the lack thereof. Imagine you are in a work meeting and you hear someone say, I couldn't finish the report because my cat ate my motivation. Yes, you've guessed it. It's the professional lazy person in action. But why do some people seem to have a PhD in procrastination? Science has some interesting answers. According to a study by the University of Calgary, laziness might actually be an evolutionary strategy to conserve energy. It's as if our caveman ancestors bequeathed us the energy-saving or battery-saving mode gene. But in today's world, where we don't need to save energy to escape predators, this strategy can become counterproductive. The psychologist William James once said, nothing is so fatiguing as the eternal hanging on of an incomplete task. And he was right. Procrastination not only affects our productivity, but also our mental health. A study published in the Journal of Psychological Science found that people who procrastinate regularly have higher levels of stress and worse health overall. But But all is not lost for our lazy friends. As the famous physicist Albert Einstein once said, laziness is the mother of all inventions. And while he probably said it while looking for an excuse not to comb his hair, he has a point. Sometimes the need to avoid work can lead to creative and innovative solutions. Now then, how do we identify a chronic lazy person? Here are some warning signs. 1. The king of excuses. These individuals have more excuses than a cat has lives. I couldn't exercise because my plant needed me to sing to it to grow is just the tip of the iceberg. 2. The expert in I'll do it tomorrow. For them, tomorrow is a magical place where all pending work accumulates. Spoiler alert, that tomorrow never comes. 3. The multitasker of leisure. They can watch Netflix, scroll through Instagram, and complain about their work all at the same time. If they put that energy into being productive, they probably would have solved global warming by now. 4. The shortcut seeker. Always looking for the easiest way to do things. If there were an app to breathe for you, they would be the first to download it. 5. The 5 more minutes. For them, the alarm clock is just a friendly suggestion. Just 5 more minutes, they say, and before they know it, an hour has passed. Now, we're not saying you should cut ties with everyone who prefers a nap over a gym session. But remember, surrounding ourselves with lazy people risks turning us into the sore thumb in a hand of slackers. As Jim Rohn, entrepreneur and motivational author, said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So choose your company wisely, because you might end up being the only tooth in a mouthful of motivational cavities. Now let's move on to the third type of person. Number 3, the irresponsible. Have you ever met someone who seems to live in a world without consequences? Welcome to the fascinating universe of the irresponsible. Those experts in dodging commitments and blaming everything and everyone but themselves. Imagine you are on a boat and suddenly you notice there's a hole in the hull and water is starting to pour in. While you and the rest of the crew are desperately trying to plug the hole and bail out the water, you see someone sitting calmly on the deck, sunbathing and saying, "It's not my problem, I didn't make the hole." That, my friends, is the irresponsible in their natural habitat. When we try to help someone with this behavior pattern, we often find ourselves in a frustrating cycle. No matter how hard we try to support them, our help rarely results in significant progress. The irresponsible avoid responsibilities and have an almost Olympic ability to blame others for their own failures. If something goes wrong, even if it is completely unrelated to our intervention, we can end up being pointed out as the culprits. This is not only unfair, but can also take a significant emotional and reputational toll on those trying to help. Therefore, it is essential to adopt a careful approach when dealing with people who behave this way. How? An effective strategy is to invite them to reflect on their actions and the consequences they entail. Instead of solving their problems for them, we can guide them to develop self-evaluation and self-management skills. Neuroscience.
Okay. Sorry about that. But I wanted to show this video. This is leading up to something.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Life with Sam in Louisiana. As promised, we're going to deep dive into this cult called Straightway Ministries, folks. This cult has taken no less than 3 ex-NFL players and basically separated them from their families and their careers. This is insane. It goes so much further than what just happened with Daniel Murr abusing his 14-year-old son and then refusing to bring that child to the police station for a wellness check. That's all they requested. His wife and he decided, we're sovereign citizens of the United States and we don't have to comply. that ended up with a raid. Indiana home that's located on a compound with a bunch of Straightway ministry folks. Guys, this gets deep. We're going to jump from Daniel Murr all the way to KGB, and I'm going to show you how this cult has progressively attracted black NFL players for the last 10 years. You're not going to want to turn this off.
Okay, sons of Jacob, you guys probably wouldn't believe me if I told you this stuff, but anyway, I just want to show you, this is my wife moving out. Obviously she needs help because she's pregnant, but the part that I wanted to show you guys is this, is that the help that came to help her. This is people from her church that came to help. The church I used to go to, I used to be a deacon, a part of this church, and no due process at all.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Life with Sam in Louisiana. As promised, we're going to break down Straightway Ministries a little bit further. Yes, you do recognize this fella. This is Kabar, KGB, the Packers' all-time sack leader. He is now officially a cult member. This video was taken shortly after his wife of multiple years decided to leave him because he had begun going to a church led by a man named Pasto Dowell. Now, as we begin to dig in further to what happened with Daniel Murr, who is also Green Bay Packers and a Colts NFL player, and the abuse and hiding of his 14-year-old son, we found multiple NFL players have also fallen into cults. Now, this cult is especially dangerous because it now has taken Daniel Murr, KGB, Adamuina, and several other ex-NFL players off the market. They have donated all their worldly goods to Pasto Dowell, and they believe in things like polygamy, not getting married with a marriage license so that your wife can take things from you. They do not allow their members to receive medical care, dental care, or a formal education of any sort. What you will find when you listen to people who follow Pasto Dowell's mentality is that the Old Testament is what you should be living by. So they want their women to be silent. And here's a video. Now, this is extremely concerning to me because as I dug into this cult, I found that there have been multiple allegations of grooming of young women from around the country. In other words, Pasto Dowell and the one they call the mothers, the actual wedded women, will find these young girls using tools like YouTube, Facebook, their .com websites, and they will groom these young girls even against the family's wishes. And the day that these young girls turn 18, they disappear into the Straightway compound, guys. Is what it is. These people believe in, I know most of you have heard about it, it's called the sovereign movement, where they don't believe that they should have to follow any laws in this country, not from the IRS to the local police department. They are into prepping, they are into gardening, which is much like what I do here on the homestead, which is why it's so stinking scary, folks. But watch this video of these women.
Straightway Helpies! Us the very same way. So, if you have come to our channel and you want to see righteousness and you want to see holiness, keep watching. I guarantee you're going to love everything you see because everyone wants to know the women behind Pasto Dowell and the Straightway Truth Ministry. No matter what you've been through, here you are. No matter if you think you're falling apart, it's gonna be okay. I have forsaken all to follow my true family. I was born in Puerto Rico.
I'm from Philadelphia, and I've been following Straightway for 4 years.
I have known the ways of Yahweh since 11 years old. I am from Ohio.
I am part of Straightway Ministries for a little under 1 year, and I'm from Colorado.
I have been a deliverance participant and helper for almost 20 years.
I am from Indiana, and I live with my family here on the land, doing the goats, the greenhouse, and selling.
I'm an Israelitess, a bondservant, and a wife. I'm from Minnesota.
I have 3 children. I love to homeschool. I am from Japan.
I've been following Straightway Ministries for 6.5 years, and I'm from California.
Shalom. My master and I have been following Straightway Ministries for 4.5.
Anybody else notice the oddity in these women? It can't just be me. Look, folks, Straightway Ministries is without a doubt a twisting of multiple religions, okay? They believe that they are part of the Hebrew missing tribes. So they push for black people to believe that they have a higher calling with God and that, you know, they were brought here from slavery. And I think that's why it's appealing to so many of our NFL players. I mean, Daniel Murr, KGB, and whoever this fellow is, they've rooked him into it now too, folks. And it just gets so much deeper as you dig through it. I was very concerned as I listened to this, as I found reports of parents begging police officers to go get their daughters because they believe, like Daniel, let's take KGB for instance. I started the video with him, you know, complaining that a Christian church was helping his wife move out because she would not obey him. She would not bow down to him. He was concerned because he had a whole bunch of sons and then had a daughter, and it was because he was concerned about raising a daughter that led him to Pasto Dowell. It's so twisted, folks. Look, people give their entire paychecks to this man. When you come with whatever worldly belongings you have, you leave them at the foot of this gentleman. They bow to Pasto Dowell. They bow to their husbands. Their husbands have multiple wives. I've never seen anything quite as disturbing as this man. And then the fact that KGB sent 2 armed assailants to his biological children's school for a Christmas play. All right, like, he threatened the pastor because he renounced Christianity and didn't want his kids raised that way, but obviously the courts decided that Elaine was going to have custody, his ex-wife. So he sent 2 assailants to the school with semi-automatic weapons. So hit the like button, subscribe, ring your notification bell, and drop a comment. If you're interested in what's going on with the NFL players joining cults, if you want more of that type.
You believe that they're chosen, right? But everybody don't think Pasto Dowell don't have no issues. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. That's all I gotta say is wow. But yeah, that's just really, it's just really bizarre. And it's still the case with the young man that's being abused. They've been talking about that. And then that man was a part of Straightway. And Dowell's people is trying to cover it up. And there's a couple of content creators covering it right now. And the reason why I played that video about a cult leader and the personality, just to give you an idea of what kind of personality of people, what a cult is. Number 2 reason why I showed, because that's how many people, when you find someone on the internet like YouTube or Facebook or TikTok or Instagram, they get sucked in what it's about. And so that lady did an excellent job of breaking it down. And this lady just told you, did Pastor Dowell meet that? And not only Pastor Dowell, there's a few other people that kind of move in that direction. And one of them is Dr. Umar Johnson. And I made a video. They got the same kind of a certain personality. And breaking down, and if people don't have the wisdom, the insight, you can fall for something like that. Just because someone say something or mention some half truth, it don't mean that they are legit. But some people will take it and run, and it's scary that there's people that don't have the discernment and God-given discernment to find out, is this person right? And wait till the Most High, God reveal who this person is. In the case with some of these people with Straightway, the Lord would have showed these individuals who Pastor Dowell was, but they went on and they let the enemy just suck them in. Now you see how the way some people are going to be led astray. Now we see it now, because it's really dangerous. At the same time, it's some people are just dangerous. But
all right, y'all. Pastor Dowell. Let me explain something. And I'm not going to assume that you're a smart man, because you've allowed some things to happen. You've put yourself in some situations that smart people don't put themselves into. You're fueled by something else. But I'm going to let you know the consequences. It's not about Pastor Mir. It's all about you. Pastor Mir in that situation with the abuse. Yeah, if that's what happened, he should get charged, so forth. But it's not about him. You have to know, as a leader of a cult that has been investigated by several alphabet communities. When I say alphabet communities, we're talking about FBI, FED, GBI, IB, what they got? GBI, IBI. When you got the feds, you got the certain authorities on you, and you built yourself up as this high-profile character. Everything. You know how they read you your Miranda rights. Everything you say will be used against you. They're going to use every video. They're going to use every single video that you ever put out. You said something ignorant the other day, but you said, and it told me a lot about you, what you had going on, and how you felt that you were safe. Control everything. Have your name on nothing, but control everything. You're not safe, brother. There are dope dealers who are doing life in prison, and they've never been seen touching any dope. Something called conspiracy. I'm just finna give you some information, Pastor Dowell. This is really just directed to you. Whether you want to use the information or not, it's on you, brother. I've done a few videos before telling you to repent, bro. Asking you to repent. I'm not asking you to repent, brother. Now I'm just trying to help you. Maybe help you see what's finna come down this pipeline. You cannot trust Pastor Mir. You cannot trust anybody in your community to lay down themselves or to be a Christ for you. For them to lay down their lives. And you can preach the sermon. There's a verse in there in Peter that tells us to be like Christ. It tells us the greatest form of love is for one to lay down his life for his brother. But it's going to be hard to be truly comprehended, especially by an individual you giving $50 a month to take care of his family. Especially somebody you only giving a $200 allowance. It's gonna be a hard serve trying to tell this individual he needs to lay down his life, to throw his life away and go to prison for his pastor, for his shepherd that only allows him enough to buy a couple packs of noodles and some Oreos to feed his family. It's gonna be tough. Now, if these people were well off and they were well taken care of, it'll be different. But in a situation like what's about to come, every person that has been mistreated is going to have a testimony against you. You know, I use those videos of Nature Boy who end up getting life in prison, but everybody he mistreated was up on that stand testifying against him. Everything that you hold, everything that created you, that made you, will be used against you. I remember you saying something about, God told you, or Yah told you to make yourself known. You've exposed yourself. You've made yourself known. So you thought it was about making yourself this grander image and making yourself and being this to reach this celebrity status of this great influence. But no, it was really to make yourself known, where people can really truly know who you are. And there are going to be many witnesses. And you other leaders there, you're not safe. You're going to have to choose a side, because there are going to be many witnesses against you also. What's my brother name? They got kicked out. Pastor Rufus. You're not safe either, brother. Pasto Dowell is not going down by himself. Okay? So, whatever went on in them little rooms, don't think it wasn't recorded. Don't think if it wasn't recorded, don't think it's not being recorded now. They done raided that place. They done bugged it also. Pastor Mir may come back with a bug on him. They probably already been inside of that organization. You can't trust nobody. If it's me, I can't trust any. If I was pastor, I can't trust nobody. I don't care how long they've been here. Because what is the actual benefit of you being here? You know, I had to like, you know, are you really that dumb? I know I wouldn't be here being treated the way I'm treating you. Why are you here? Why are you suffering to be around me? Do you really believe that this is the home of the truth? That this is the only place where you can receive salvation? Or are you the feds? Are you here suffering me, watching me, taking my verbal abuse, documenting everything that's going on, trying to build a case against me? That's what you need to be understanding, Pasto Dowell. You know, I seen a video. You had a brother, and I'm not gonna do all the clipping and all of this stuff because, again, this is directly to Pasto Dowell, or if his minions send this to him. You had a brother standing up there, and you wanted him to give you all of this praise and tell him how you've been here 12 years, and tell him about your experience on Straightway. That I can see that brother now on that stand talking about how vicious of a leader you were. And what's sad is, that's why I was talking about, I'm not going to assume that you're smart. You're going to be very shocked about what's going to happen. You're going to be very shocked at the people who are going to be testifying against you. What was that brother named, that other football player that ran into some issues? Your ex-wife is going to be there testifying against you, brother. She going to be there testifying against you in Straightway. That sister that the brother said, you know, I wanted to marry a virgin, but I couldn't marry a virgin. You know, oh man, I just wanted to marry this virgin, but then you married somebody who wasn't a virgin. And then you said none of her family was there. Her family gonna be at that court case, bro. When they see that ministry being taken down, all of those family members are gonna be there. They wasn't there for the wedding, but they will raise their hand up to say, I have information about what's going on in that place. That first wife. She didn't want you to go into that polygamy. She didn't want you dealing with that mess. She tired. She might be their main witness. Can you trust her? When we facing life in prison, can you trust that first wife? After you just got you a new one, after you got 3-4 after her, you don't pay her no attention no more. When you done had to fight off the jealousy, when you done had to maybe even hit the jealousy out of her. Will she be there? And that's alleged, that's speculative. I'm not saying any woman over there is being abused. But I know that flesh, it will get jealous of another woman sleeping with their man. And they gonna feel some kind of way. And they gonna have to be trained on how to hold back those emotions. They're gonna be laying there fighting off tears, hearing their husband with another woman. seeing their husband with another woman, will that woman vouch for you in the court of law? Now, Nature Boy had 5 wives that vouched for him, but he had 7. But he had 7 on the other side talking about how much of a demon he was. He had 5 or 6 of them on the other side that he didn't really get with, So you just think about that, Pastor Dowell. If there's any of them other sisters there that you were thinking about courting, but they really didn't get, and you had to talk to them a certain way, and they end up crying and leaving and going somewhere else, and you had to marry them all, they ain't gonna be at that court date, brother. They gonna be wanting to testify. They gonna want to tell their story. Pastor Dowell, we live in a world today where a story about coming out of a cult is very profitable. There was a woman on TikTok that she did a series about who did I marry? Who did I marry and became a millionaire? Do they have that loyalty? They got the loyalty to stay on that farm, but do they have the loyalty to turn down that book deal, to risk their freedom, to face persecution? Have you trained that in them? Have you taught them that? Control everything. Are you really in control? You're not. You're not in control. This was one phone call from my grandmother. This was one phone call from my grandmother. And got you in this situation. One phone call. If I had to advise you, my advice ain't nothing. Who am I? But this would be the time to pack it up, man. Get your wives, sell everything, go to Belize with Russell Simmons and Puff Daddy. It's gonna be very high risk for you to stay there in Tennessee and continue things as they are. You've been being monitored, and they're just building their case with just a substantial amount of evidence that you're going to take a plea deal. That you're going to have to take a plea deal. Worst case, well, not worst case, but at least you can take your finances and get you a good lawyer, man. Them folks are in custody. They're in there. They not talking about that child, man. They in them interrogation rooms. They're not talking about that child. That's a domestic violence case. That's open shut. We ain't got to do a whole bunch of delegating and deliberating on that. If he beat that child, okay, we gonna lock him up. We'll release the sister. You can put the other little cases on them and whatnot. About them tampering with evidence and getting in the police way of their investigation, getting in the way of their investigation. You can get them on that, but I don't see that keeping him in jail. Maybe them taking that child, but this stuff happens. Alright? So I'm not the one like, man, he beat the child. Like, that is a terrible thing. That is absolutely terrible. If, whatever happened to that child, if that happened that way, and he was physically abused by his father, that's very terrible. But if you know any social workers, man, people are let me just say that, man. Like, people are terrible. There was a case recently where this white couple had adopted 5 kids. Well, I don't know. Let me not even say that, because I don't. Sometimes they generate these stories in AI and they just be making this stuff up. So I haven't investigated, but it was a story like that. But I don't know if that's actually true, where they had them adopted and had them pretty much as slaves or whatever. But I know a few social workers, and they've told me some terrible things. They've had to get counseling after seeing certain cases of kids being abused and not being fed and locked in basements and so forth. They know how to deal with these kind of cases. But this is really about you, Pasto Dowell. You think that you're not connected, and I know you're nervous, and you need to trust those feelings. You need to trust those feelings. You can't giggle this off. You're not gonna be able to make these videos. Like, you can make questions. You can question and try to control and influence, the body. But eventually that body's gonna turn on you. And those in the body, you need to understand too that if that paperwork ain't straight, everything's lost. Everything that you've invested into Straightway is in jeopardy. Everything that you thought you was finna retire, you thought you had it figured out, you're outside the system, you're living off the land a little bit, and you just need to build you a house, and you're gonna be the little house it's in jeopardy. It's very unlikely to happen. Whatever idea that you had about the rest of your life at Straightway is you need to get rid of it. Or you need something in your name.
I'm gonna leave it right there. And those of you who tied into his ministry, you're gonna be held accountable for it too. Those who support ministries and the Straightway ministries, you're gonna be accountable. The Most High God is gonna deal with you because you anticipated with that. You stood in agreement with Pasto Dowell. You sent this ministry in it, and just like that NFL player. So you just much is in line with that too. But in some form or fashion, God's gonna deal with everybody because that was an ugly case, and God don't play when it comes to children. And that was an innocent boy, but you're gonna have to pay a price, and it's not gonna be pretty. So what he's saying, yes, but he addressed them. But those are the ones who support him, support his ministry, and you that help this ministry grow. It's like this: whatever you sow into, you reap what you get. So you reap into his ministry, you're going to reap something that's coming your way because this is what you reaped into. And if I was you, I would repent before the Lord for supporting that mess. And them branch off of Straightway, they're gonna be looked in sideways too, because that happened in Indiana. That sprung off of Tennessee. They're gonna probably, whatever the other Straightways is, they coming for them. Go figure. But anyway, so that's the lesson in the personality and cults of people like Dow and many other people. And so just to give you a bare front of what a cult is and how they come to social media and try to influence. And look how many people got sucked into that. And they didn't use no discernment from the Most High God. They want to be the children of Israel, but don't want to hear from the personal one. God would have told every one of those women and men, he's not of me. But they got so charismatic, and look what Satan did. Satan's still using Dowell, and you don't even see it. Wow. And that's on them. Alright then, ladies and gentlemen. And be glad that you're not a part of that. And be blessed, and see you on the next video. And seek the Most High God before you seek. Question someone before you go and sign up with anybody's ministry. Ask him, is he for his kingdom? Either you're a Hebrew Israelite, or Hebrew, or consider yourself one of the most chosen. Alright then, take care, everybody. See you on the next video.